Never ignore these ancient ideas if you want real success. People have used them for centuries to get clarity, find purpose, and make huge improvements in their lives. If you've ever felt stuck, keep listening, because the 7 Hermetic Principles might completely flip your entire view of success. I used to wonder why some people seemed to reach their goals almost effortlessly, while others struggled with every step. There had to be a deeper explanation than just hard work or luck. That's when I discovered there's an actual set of ancient teachings, often called Hermetic philosophy. These teachings trace back through a long and fascinating history, and surprisingly enough, they're not just random words that people recite without any real-world application. Instead, they offer a clear, almost scientific way of looking at how our minds, our environment, and our everyday actions connect to shape our reality. In this script, I want to show you how these 7 Hermetic Principles can be applied to your modern life to achieve success in your career, relationships, health, or any other area where you feel a drive to improve. The real problem most of us face today is that we don't fully understand how our inner world shapes our outer results. We chase new productivity tools. We buy fancy planners. We try the latest habit tracking apps. And for a while, those might spark a bit of motivation. But then we slip back into old patterns. We lose that initial drive. It's like the cycle keeps repeating, and we keep thinking maybe the next big strategy or hack will finally fix things. Meanwhile, there's a whole framework that explains not only the what, but also the why, and it does so in a way that you can carry with you anywhere, regardless of what new trend might pop up next month. If you can relate to trying out new habits or reading new self-help books, only to find that your motivation fades, then you'll see why these age-old principles could be a game changer. They're not an overnight trick. They're more like timeless guidelines. So if you have an area in your life where you want that big breakthrough, maybe it's finances, maybe it's your sense of self-worth, or even the quality of your relationships, imagine having a set of rules that help you not just push forward blindly, but understand what's going on behind the scenes. That's what the 7 Hermetic Principles can do. They give structure to what often feels random. They give you a lens to see where your own decisions, thoughts, and emotions might be moving you forward or holding you back. Instead of blaming yourself or your circumstances, you get to see patterns and connections. So let's talk about these principles one by one, and I'll break them down in plain language so you don't feel overwhelmed. First principle is known as mentalism. It states that all is mind, which means everything we experience, create, or engage with starts from thought. Before a building is constructed, an architect envisions it. Before a song is written, a musician hears a melody in their head. Before you decide to make a career change, you start thinking about that possibility. You can use the principle of mentalism by paying attention to your thoughts on a daily basis. If your inner dialogue is filled with negativity, maybe telling yourself you're not worthy or smart enough, that mindset influences every single action you take. On the other hand, if you consistently guide your thoughts toward growth, possibility, and abundance, you set the stage for your external world to mirror those beliefs. One practical way to do this is affirmations. Repeating statements like, "I am more than capable of handling challenges at work," or "I am open to new opportunities," might feel weird at first, but over time, they shift your mental default settings. Another tool is visualization. If you're hoping to get a better job, spend a few minutes every morning picturing yourself confidently interviewing for that job, meeting your new team, and thriving in that environment. These mental exercises help you realize that all external actions begin inside your head. Next is the principle of correspondence, often summed up as above, so below. It means there's a pattern connecting what's happening in the larger scale of reality with what's happening in your personal life. A more everyday way of putting it might be that your outer world reflects your inner world. You can see this if you pay attention to your environment. If your room or workspace is constantly messy, you might notice that your thoughts feel scattered too. If you're anxious, your surroundings can feel tense. When you're calm, you'll observe that the people around you often seem calmer. Think about how you can use this. If you want a more organized life, start by organizing your immediate space. If you want more peaceful relationships, look for how you might be contributing to chaos and see if you can bring that sense of peace internally first. You might also notice that a skill learned in one area corresponds to success in another. If you learn to be disciplined in fitness by working out regularly, that same discipline can transfer over to your work habits. This principle basically shows that there's an underlying theme or order in how things connect across different layers of life, and noticing those patterns can help you make better decisions. Moving on to the principle of vibration, which suggests that everything has its own frequency. This includes objects, music notes, emotions, and even your thoughts. You probably know what I mean by someone having good vibes or bad vibes. This principle explains that's not just a slang expression. There's a legitimate shift in energy we pick up on. If you want to use this for your own success, pay attention to how you're feeling emotionally and physically. Notice how your energy level influences people around you. If you walk into a room excited and confident, you tend to spark something positive in others. On the flip side, if you're always complaining or focusing on what's going wrong, you might drain the energy of the space. You can also raise your vibration with very simple actions. Listen to music that uplifts you. Spend time in nature, or take time to practice gratitude. These might seem small, but they can shift you from a lower vibe state, maybe feeling cynical or drained, to a higher vibe state, feeling optimistic and energized. This matters because when you're on a higher wavelength, you often spot opportunities that you'd overlook in a pessimistic or negative state of mind. The fourth principle is polarity. This one says that everything has two poles, and seemingly opposite things are actually two extremes of the same spectrum. A basic example is heat and cold. They're not entirely different categories. Rather, they're points on a scale of temperature. Similarly, love and hate are at opposite ends of an emotional range, but both stem from strong feelings. Why is this useful for modern success? Because if you feel stuck in a negative state, you can remind yourself that the positive state you desire is part of the same continuum. Depression and happiness, fear and courage. These aren't different universes. They're on the same line, just at different positions. That means movement from one extreme to the other is possible, often by taking small steps consistently. If you're consumed by fear, consider the idea that fear and courage are both intense energies. One is just on a different end of the scale. This perspective can help you shift inch by inch toward a more positive or empowering emotion. It also helps to resolve conflicts, because you can look for where you and someone else might actually agree, rather than assuming you're total opposites. This principle shows that dualities aren't absolute divisions. They're related, and you have more control over shifting from one end to the other than you might initially think. Then we have the principle of rhythm, which states that everything in the universe has a flow, like a pendulum swinging back and forth. You see this in the way seasons change, how the tide comes in and out, how day turns into night, and then back into day again. The same kind of rhythm applies to your personal life. You have times where you feel unstoppable, full of motivation, ready to tackle any project. And then there are times when you feel drained, less creative, or simply uninterested in pushing hard. We sometimes beat ourselves up for not being at 100% every day. The principle of rhythm suggests that's simply not how life works, and that's perfectly okay. The key is to understand and accept the swings. On days or weeks when your energy is high, capitalize on it by doing the most challenging or important tasks. When you notice yourself entering a lull, don't waste energy feeling guilty. Use that period to rest, reflect, and prepare for the next upswing. This principle also teaches us that even when things look grim, the pendulum will eventually swing back. It's a reminder to hang on and know that any dark season is followed by a brighter one. Recognizing these patterns can drastically reduce stress because you stop expecting yourself to be a perpetual machine and start working in harmony with your natural cycles. Next up is the principle of cause and effect. While most of us learned that every action has a reaction in school, Hermetic philosophy says there's more to it. Nothing happens by chance. If something happens, there's always a cause behind it, even if that cause isn't obvious. This principle is particularly powerful for those of us seeking success in a tangible way. If your finances are in bad shape, it might be tempting to say it's just bad luck. But cause and effect suggest your financial reality is a direct result of certain habits, decisions, and influences over time. That could be overspending, not budgeting, not investing in yourself, or ignoring opportunities because of fear. Once you accept that everything has a cause, you realize that you can create the effects you want by setting the right causes in motion. If you want to improve your health, the cause might be a consistent workout plan or a change in your diet. If you want better relationships, the cause might be open communication, empathy, and setting boundaries. If you want more success at work, the cause might be learning new skills, networking, or proposing new ideas. It turns you into a proactive person instead of someone who sits around waiting for the world to change. By focusing on the underlying causes, you're actually seizing control of future outcomes. Finally, we arrive at the principle of gender. In Hermetic philosophy, this isn't just about physical male and female. It's more about the idea that everything has masculine and feminine qualities, and both are necessary for creation. Think of logic versus intuition, action versus reflection, giving versus receiving. Too often, people get stuck in one mode. Maybe they're all logic, ignoring their gut instincts, or they rely so much on their intuition that they never take concrete steps. The principle suggests that when these two forces are in balance, that's when true creation happens. For example, if you're starting a business, the masculine energy might be planning, strategizing, and taking bold action. The feminine energy might be creativity, empathy, and the ability to adapt when things don't go as planned. If you only use one side, you might miss out on the other's advantages. Another example is the balance between giving and receiving. Some people are great at giving advice, offering help, or working tirelessly, but they struggle to receive support or feedback. Others sit back, never offering anything, always waiting to be served or guided. Finding harmony in these dual aspects leads to growth. You avoid burnout and also avoid stagnation because you're using both action-oriented and reflection-oriented energies in a healthy cycle. Now, let's bring everything together. Once you understand that all these principles interconnect, you can see how they form a cohesive approach to life and success. You realize that your mind shapes your world. Mentalism. You see that things going on inside you have a direct correlation to what's happening outside. Correspondence. You become aware that you carry a certain energy or frequency, and that you can shift it to get better outcomes. Vibration. You grasp that opposite states are simply different degrees of the same thing, so you can move away from extreme negatives. Polarity. You learn to flow with the ups and downs of life. Rhythm. You take responsibility for what you set in motion, understanding every effect has a cause and effect. And you remember that blending logic and intuition, or action and reflection, is key to creating anything worthwhile. Gender. At this point, you are probably seeing that using these principles means you no longer view life as a random series of events you can't control. You start to see where you have agency. Let's say you're facing a big challenge like a business setback or a personal conflict. You can take a step back and think, okay, is my mindset contributing to this? Maybe I've been expecting failure without realizing it. That's mentalism. Then you might check your environment. Does your workspace mirror the clutter in your mind? That's correspondence. You look at your vibe. Are you operating in a state of negativity? That's vibration. Then you remind yourself that success and failure are on the same spectrum, and you can pivot from a losing streak to a winning streak, polarity. You also keep in mind that life's rhythms mean you might be at a natural low point, but a swing upwards is possible. Rhythm. You own the choices that got you here, and look for the next cause you can set in motion for a better effect. Cause and effect. And finally, you ask whether you're combining both strategic thinking and intuitive hunches. Gender. When you do this consistently, problems become manageable. They're no longer random disasters. They're situations you can unpack using these guidelines. The more you do it, the more second nature it becomes. In other words, you stop feeling like a victim of chance and become the creator of your own experience. Some people might call this leveling up in a spiritual sense, while others see it as attaining more self-mastery. Whatever label you give it, you'll likely see genuine changes in areas like your finances. Maybe you'll invest more wisely or look for new streams of income. You might see changes in your health because you recognize that mindset and habits are connected. You might notice your relationships improve because your energy and communication are more balanced. It's not about creating a perfect life with zero obstacles, but rather about having a powerful, clear framework for dealing with whatever arises. Let me restate the 7 Hermetic Principles in a very short, direct way to wrap it all up. First, mentalism says that everything starts with the mind. Second, correspondence reminds us that our inner patterns reflect our outer experiences. Third, vibration says everything has a frequency, and we can raise or lower ours. Fourth, polarity teaches that opposites exist on the same spectrum. Fifth, rhythm shows us that life has its natural cycles, and we can work with them rather than against them. Sixth, cause and effect points out that nothing happens by chance, and our choices create our outcomes. Lastly, gender states that everything contains both a masculine and a feminine element, and real creation happens when we balance the two. These principles are simple to understand in theory, yet incredibly deep in practice. It's helpful to revisit them regularly, because as you grow, you might see new layers in each principle. At first, you might just use mentalism to watch your thoughts once a day. Later, you might explore deeper meditation techniques to truly harness the power of your mind. At first, you might apply polarity to shift a bad mood to a better mood. Later, you might realize you can shift entire aspects of your life by seeing them as part of a continuum rather than fixed states. The learning never ends, which is one reason why Hermetic teachings have lasted through the centuries and helped people in different cultures and at different eras. To sum it up, you have an opportunity to take these 7 principles and plug them into your daily routines. You can test them out in small ways first. Notice how your vibe affects a conversation with a friend or coworker, or how changing your mindset about a task changes your enthusiasm. Once you see them working in the little things, you might feel more confident applying them to bigger goals, maybe launching a new project, changing your career path, or improving long-standing relationship issues. The beauty is that these principles stay consistent, whether you're focusing on small-scale personal habits or huge life decisions. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed, disheartened, or just plain stuck, consider giving these Hermetic principles a real chance. They might provide the sense of structure and empowerment you've been searching for. And if some part of you is skeptical, that's totally natural. Many of us were taught that success is just about grinding harder or being in the right place at the right time. But there's a reason these teachings have stuck around. They dive beneath the surface of everyday life and show us how we're creating our experiences, often without realizing it. Once you see the bigger picture, it becomes much easier to make conscious choices, take consistent action, and stay aligned with what you truly want. Subscribe if this helped.